Welcome to another Big Daddy D adventure. Today we have another workshop adventure. We're going to be building a 20-foot horizontal steel storage rack. What you see here is actually two 6-foot racks with a 4-foot gap in between them. What I did is I included 3 arms plus storage on the base. Each of the arms is kicked up about 10 degrees and it has a little tab on the front to help things from rolling off. I did have wheels on this thing, so I will be able to move it around the shop in case I need to move it to somewhere else. Here I'm using my Evolution cold cut saw to cut the 2x2 square tubing. That's going to be the uprights, the base, and then the top shelf. Let's get cutting. Always remember, measure twice, cut once. I also wanted to highlight that on this Evolution saw, it has a diagonal cut. Anytime I cut steel that's a little larger diameter or a little larger squares, it's easier to cut up on edge rather than have to cut through the flat surfaces on the tubing. All right, wanted to highlight something. I set it up for a 10-degree angle. What I do here is I usually rough it in against this edge on the shop saw first. You'll get that kind of lined up. That way I don't have to mess with the blade. So line it up with that. This is assuming that your guide here, this hole, has got the same angle as your blade. But yeah, I just usually line it up like that. And then to double check it, I'll go ahead and pull the blade down and then check it there and then tighten it. So hopefully that helps. I use that to quickly set it up so I don't have to mess with the blade so much. I just set this here, run it off the guide, double check that my measurement hasn't moved, and then I'm good to cut. On these, I'm going to cut those shelves at about a 10-degree angle so that if there's any steel on there, that it'll tend to roll back down towards the back rather than rolling off the front if it was level, especially if I'm going to have this on wheels and moving it around. So another extra little safety precaution. Hopefully that helps. All right, I want to explain what I'm doing here. These are my bottom 4 shelves and these are my top 4 shelves, and I cut them at a 10-degree angle, but as you can tell, it's hard to tell where the 10-degree angle is. So what I did is I set up my angle guide here with a 10-degree angle, and what I did is I held it up and then tried to rotate it till it fit. So now I know it fits, and I want the shelf to be in a certain orientation. So what I did is I marked top and vertical, a vert. So again, that's my indicator when I go to assemble it, that this has to be on top and this has to be against my vertical on my arm. That way I get my angles right. And I check the back angle and then I rotate it over just to make sure, and I cut the other angle too. Anyway, hopefully that's a good assembly tip. What I have here is I'm going to make 4 uprights. I got bottoms, verticals, and tops. And that's going to look like a C. And then I'm going to also put shelves. I'm going to have a lower shelf and an upper shelf. And then what I'm going to do is it'll be rolling. Then what I'll also have is on each, I'm going to make 2 separate 6-foot shelves. So these 4 will be cross pieces, 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom, to kind of help it prevent from racking. And that's, again, for the left shelf and the right shelf. And that's it. So let's go ahead and start getting it put together. I wanted to highlight a fabrication technique I'm using here by raising my pieces up off the floor with those 3 angles, all the same size angles, by the way. And then I put this large angle across to kind of hold them down onto those pieces. What this does is it takes the unlevelness of the floor out of the equation of trying to get those 2 pieces lined up square. I'm able to check to see if they're at 90 degrees but they may be out of plane if I just leave it on the floor. So I wanted these arms to be square, not only the 90 degrees, but also vertical, so there's no twist in them. So hopefully that helps. Now that I've got the C-frames tacked together, it's time to go ahead and weld them out. So let's throw some sparks. Went ahead and tacked those middle two arms that are the 1-inch square tubings into those big C-frames, and now I'm just going through and welding all the way around each one of them at the base. Again, these arms are going to be cantilevered out. There's nothing going to support the end, so I want to make sure I got some good welds here, so I end up welding all sides on this. The next step in the fabrication process here is to join the left and the right arm into the assembly. Again, these things are spaced about 6 feet apart with those 1-inch square tubings. I wanted to also highlight that I'm using the angles on the floor again. This is to ensure that I'm not introducing any twist in that frame based on how unlevel my floor is or not. But by isolating it from the floor at those angles, I can ensure that at least they're all on the same plane. Now that I have those two frames joined, I went ahead and checked to see if it was square, and sure enough it wasn't. It was a little out. So what I'm doing here is attaching a strap across one diagonal, which was the long diagonal, and then I'm just using the ratchet strap to kind of clamp down in that direction to pull it back into square. Now that I was able to pull the frame square, I'm going to go ahead and finish welding out the rest of these corners, and then I'll pull the strap off and check for square one more time, and I think we're good to go. Now it's time to weld the braces across the ends of the arms on the front side. Here I'm just using a couple of magnetic squares to line it up and then tack it into place. I ended up running into a little bit of an issue on this last bar. I was able to get the angle magnets lined up and able to tack one end on, but when I went to tack the other end in, I had a little bit of a gap. So again, went back to using Old Faithful. I pulled out my strap because I don't have 6-foot bar clamps. And I was able to pull it up against the bar good enough to where I could tack it. And then after that, I was able to weld it out. All right, it's caster plate time. Had to throw in some CNC plasma cutting here. What I'm cutting out here are the caster plates. I end up needing 8 plates, 4 for each of the 6-foot racks. Well, the plasma cutter does a good job, but there's always a little bit of cleanup. I think I need to replace that tip on my plasma cutter, but anyway, I'll clean them up and then we'll tack them on the frame. All right, looks like it is tip time. All right, I'm going to be bolting some casters onto these plates, and I need to weld these plates onto, hold on a second, and I need to weld these plates onto these pipes. All right, so the idea here is that if by putting a washer on that nut, that washer, as long as that washer is touching the pipe, that should be enough room to get a socket in there, so I should be good. And it can walk around a little bit, but that's still enough room to get a socket in. So then all I gotta do is I gotta line it up here, something like that. And then if I like where it is, and I know those washers are touching here, then I should be able to weld it. And then when I weld it, it should be good to go. So that is the tip. Let's see how it works. Well, it's time to do some grinding. What I'm grinding here are caps for the 2-inch pipes, and then I decided to go ahead and add some 1-inch front plates to those 1x1 square tubings. Again, it's another preventative to help any steel from potentially rolling off the front of those 2 short shelves. Well, the last things I need to do are weld those 2x2 cap plates on here. And after I finish up those cap plates, I'm going to go ahead and weld the caps on those 1-inch arms that actually sticks up another inch. That way, in case I'm moving this thing around and it gets jarred in some manner, that I won't have a worry about anything rolling off of those shelves. Well, thanks for coming on another workshop project adventure with me today. I enjoyed taking you with me as I built my 20-foot horizontal storage cart. I hope you enjoyed coming on this project adventure with me and hopefully learned something along the way. As usual, if you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to go on more adventures with me, hit the subscribe button. As always, take care. Bye-bye.